The Socialist Youth Movement says it is also rejecting the new banking system for students funded by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. The national coordinator of the Socialist Youth Movement, Raees Noorbhai, joins us now for a conversation on this. Thank you for making time for us, Raees. What concerns do you have about this new banking system?
Thank you for having us. And I mean, the issues that have been brought up already concerning the exorbitant banking fees are obviously something that we share those concerns. The other thing is that students have been excluded off the system. So thousands of students have been arbitrarily, they've had their status changed from fully funded to pending decision, and as a consequence haven't received their stipends and allowances. And so students are now being put in at direct risk of hunger and homelessness. On account of the fact that NSFAS has made this shift in their banking system, outsourcing it to private corporations that operate on a for-profit basis, and in doing so has arbitrarily excluded thousands of students from the system to begin with. And I mean, in addition to this, just in the context of eviction, I mean, this isn't the first crisis we've had in relation to NSFAS this year. We know that earlier in the year, when NSFAS capped the accommodation allowances from 60,000 to 45,000, there was an accommodation crisis across the country that was followed by student protests. And so the issue of accommodation here is also very relevant, given the fact that recently the Supreme Court of Appeals made a ruling saying that the student accommodation does not constitute a home. And so students who are in rent arrears are left in a situation where they are exposed to the anxieties of imminent eviction. And so we see the entire system concerning NSFAS, which we need to remind ourselves is part of a broken system to begin with. You know, this commodified corporatized education system that we currently have is continuously in a state of crisis. So we see it year after year. I mean, not just obviously fees must fall, 2015, 2016, but repeatedly since then, we saw a state of crisis in 2021 over financial exclusion. And so the targeted grant scheme that is NSFAS needs to be interrogated in terms of its place, in terms of this corporatized education system, as one that also puts students in a position where they have to prove their poverty in order to be granted NSFAS funding, and we hold that that's indignifying. So in terms of NSFAS, I mean, we share the direct demand of immediately overturning this decision to implement this new banking system, but also make the call once again for free, quality, decolonized education for all. Sorry, and we know that the means test is problematic, and it's part and parcel of how NSFAS functions ordinarily. But I mean, again, this isn't the first crisis this year. Yeah. We have crisis year after year concerning NSFAS, concerning the payments of allowances, concerning delays, and there's constantly a disregard from, and it's because the system is serving the interests of a powerful elite, serving the interests of the ruling class, that there's a complete disregard for the material suffering of students. And so, you know, NSFAS has responded to allegations of corruption in the tendering process. I mean, some of the service providers aren't even properly licensed, and they've called it attempts at character assassination. So there's no direct accountability from NSFAS either. I mean, if you look at the NSFAS Twitter account from earlier today, they're speaking to students across the country in the situation of crisis as if we are their friends and nothing is wrong.
Let's talk about this system, the exorbitant banking fees. How different is this from the old system? Were the students not being charged the banking fees by their own banks?
So, I mean, if to put the new scheme in context, so currently the banking fee is 29 Rand per month, and that only affords students 3 withdrawals per month, 10 point-of-sale transactions, and then there's additional charges that obviously if you then go take more than 3 withdrawals or have more than 10 point of sales transactions, you are then charged. I mean, for the ATM withdrawals, you're charged 12 Rand for every 100. And so, I mean, some of the corporate banks have, let's say, exorbitant rates in comparison. And so, yes, it's not like the entirety of the banking system was free before, but even comparatively to the corporate banks, I mean, the current rates are exorbitant. And it's not because of the fact that this is the money that is needed to run the system, but this is the money that's needed in order for a small minority to make a profit. Okay. And the profit motive is a huge part of the problem.
You have argued that the new NSFAS, this new system, has not only imposed these, exorbitant banking fees on the vulnerable students, but also has delisted a number of students from the NSFAS database. What do you mean by that? Are these students who qualified for the funds but were just delisted?
Yes, they were arbitrarily delisted. So for reasons that remain unexplained, their status was changed on the system from fully funded to pending decision. And so as a consequence, they weren't paid their allowances. So yes, these were students that were accepted into the NSFAS system. And so, I mean, there's another conversation to be had concerning the missing middle, so-called, that are not poor enough for NSFAS, so to speak, but are not wealthy enough to afford the education system and everything that comes with it, including accommodation and food. And so, I mean, students who have been accepted into the system have arbitrarily been displaced, have arbitrarily been removed from the databases. And so, yes, it does. We do not know why certain students have been removed from the system and certain students have not, but it has put thousands of students in a situation where, for reasons beyond any of our understanding, they've been removed from the system and left exposed to hunger and homelessness. Okay.
How have the students suffered as a result of the introduction of this new system? And how many are we talking here? Are there lots of students who now haven't been able to get food? I'm just trying to understand the extent of the impact of the introduction of this new system.
So we know studies have suggested that it's at least thousands of students that have been placed in this situation, and so I mean the material crises is urgent. It's not that students are facing suffering on the horizon. It's the pangs of hunger that are here today. As a consequence of being removed from the system. I mean, again, like there's the issue of students being removed from the system, there's the issue of the banking charges being exorbitant, but also, again, to stress that the Supreme Court of Appeals, and I do think that this is something that needs to be taken to the Constitutional Court, which has made the decision that student accommodation doesn't constitute a home. And so when put together, the non-payment by NSFAS in conjunction, I mean, the non-payment of the accommodation fees allowance, which has already been cut by 25% earlier in the year, puts students now at direct risk of eviction. And so that's something that is again a situation of imminent, urgent crisis. It's not something that is coming, it's something that is here. And so we do need NSFAS and the state to take this seriously, which they're not, and to engage in a consultative process that involves the students who are affected, and even pay reparative fees, reparations to these students who have been affected, and to compound the many anxieties of being a student. Students are now put into situations where they have to worry about their basic fundamental needs like food and accommodation, and when you're put in that situation, it becomes more difficult to pass your classes and so on, and the system is ruthless in that regard as well, in excluding students academically. And so there is this widespread precarity among students who have already been admitted into the NSFAS system, who have been dropped now. that is facing us as an imminent crisis. I mean, we're meeting as student structures at BITS, for example, over the next couple of days to deliberate on how to deal with this, because thousands and thousands of students have been affected.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this chat. Raees Noorbhai, who is with the Socialist Youth Movement.